Have you ever bought a game and totally forgot that you had it? That just happened to me with Twilight Struggle Turn 0, and I'm so excited to show you how this works. Please join me here on Legendary Tactics. So if you have this variant for Twilight Struggle, just start a game and choose Turn 0 from the drop-down menu here. This is where you can also find the Chinese Civil War variant and the Late War variant. And then just start a game. And I was just really surprised at how this worked and really kind of excited. I want to fire this up in a game against my regular opponents. So the way this works is basically there's a crisis, and it's a deck of cards that is drawn from. And basically there's a die roll that is going to decide the conditions that happen here. And you have these cards here that can modify that roll. So Kennan boosts that roll by 1, Atchison boosts it by 1, Marshall boosts it by 2, Dulles, I think is how you say his name, Dulles, he cancels the effect of whatever the USSR has played, and then you have a dummy card as well, which has no effect. And this card will stay with you. It comes back into your hand afterwards. And what's so neat about this, I think you have to play the dummy card basically twice, and just accept the roll. But what this does is it adds a variation on the starting setup. So for example, obviously the USSR wants to roll low, the US wants to roll high. So if you look at the best case Soviet scenario for VE Day, the Soviets advance past the Elbe, apply the 2-3 result, which I'll get to, and the USSR receives 1 influence in West Germany and 1 in Austria during setup. And then you apply the 2-3, which is the Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht collapses. Soviets overrun Eastern Europe before Christmas. They receive 2 additional Eastern European influence during setup. Now, obviously, the best for the US would be to get a 6, a bridge just far enough, and both players receive 2 influence in East Germany. And for the USSR, this is in lieu of that specifically placed in East Germany, but their general Eastern European influence may be placed there normally, and replace the Europe scoring card with the Allied Berlin version, which is a modified card, obviously. The blockade event has no effect. So now as the US player in this scenario, or the Soviet player, you have to decide what sort of, how important is this event to you? And so I would say, man, that's kind of a big deal. So I'm going to put Marshall on the case here and add +2 to the roll. And we got a 6 +2, which is 6. And his card actually canceled the effect of my card for the current crisis, but I got lucky, and now I actually get 2 influence in East Germany as a result of this. Let's keep on going. So the next crisis is the 1945 UK election. Now this could, in the worst case for the US player, US influence in the UK is reduced by 2. Okay, best case is that socialist governments the socialist government's event card moves to the mid-war deck. Suez crisis event has no effect permanently. That's pretty cool. Also, even if you roll 4 to 5, socialist government's event has no effect on turns 1 or 2. But you know what? I might say, well, you know what? I'm going to take the risk on this. I'm okay with whatever happens. And we both chose the dummy card. I lucked out. Coalition governments, socialist governments event has no effect on turns 1 and 2. So far, I'm doing great. Okay, and the dummy card comes back. Now, Yalta and Potsdam. Again, best case scenario for the American player. FDR dies just before the Yalta conference, and Truman takes a hard line with the Soviets. And we apply the same result as 4 to 5, and the U.S. goes first in all early war turns. So you think about that. If the U.S. player goes first, that's crazy. And you apply the 4 to 5 effects, which basically means the U.S. takes Marshall Plan into hand before drawing cards in turn 1. So that is really, really cool. So that one might be like, hey, that one is something I really want to boost. So I'm going to take Atchison here and see if we can, how we do. Now, he played Molotov, which subtracted 2. So I still get Marshall Plan in hand before drawing cards for the turn. But so just going through, I think there's 3 more events actually. So we have VJ Day. Again, the Soviets, if they get their way, then they can move the US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact card to the mid-war deck and 1 USSR influence in each of Japan and South Korea during setup. That'll change the dynamic in Asia for sure. And then they also get 1 influence in South Korea as well during setup, because they get the 2 to 3 result. If you roll 6, Japan surrenders after the Hiroshima bomb, not after the Nagasaki bomb as historically happened. Stalin reigns in surrogates, so you remove the Korean War card from the game, and on turn 1, US ignores DEFCON restrictions, and DEFCON cannot go below 2. So you cannot end the game. You can coup to your heart's content. Well, that one, I don't know. So we'll maybe use Dulles for that. And it rolls 2. So the Soviets receive 1 influence in South Korea during setup. That's something I can live with. And you can see it just arriving there. Now we have Israel. And again, for the USSR, the best case scenario is they get 2 influence anywhere in the Middle East during setup, no more than 1 per country. And they can also get 1 influence in Syria. So that one's fine. I'll maybe take the dummy card on that one. I'm okay with that. They roll 5. No effect. Now, if you roll a 6, basically the U.S. gets 1 additional influence in each of Israel, Lebanon, and Jordan during setup, which is, that's a nice bonus. That means that Arab-Israeli war and so forth are harder to pull off. You don't have to waste ops there to protect your presence in the Middle East. Really neat effect. And then the final event here is the Chinese Civil War. Again, for the USSR, the best they can hope for is removing Ussuri River Skirmish from the game. That is powerful. That's one of the best US events in the game. For the US, basically, this is really neat. So you get Taiwan is permanently a battleground country, and add 3 US influence in Taiwan during setup. Replace Formosan Resolution with the Nationalist China card, and that's one that we would have to show you here. And they also get the China card begins the game face down, so the Soviets cannot use the China card in the first turn. So that's one that I want to boost. So go for it, Kenan. See what you can do. All right, well, we got the China card that begins the game face down, and that's basically turn 0. That is, as you can see, I'm starting with the Marshall Plan in hand, which is great. And so I'm going to select the Marshall Plan, and I get my hand. And now I did add a few bonus cards here, so this isn't necessarily tied to the turn 0, but I was just kind of experimenting there. But really, really neat opening for the game. After that, the game kind of proceeds as before. You can put your usual influence, but if you look, hey, I've got 2 influence in East Germany now, so that's kind of neat. So we'll do our usual. I just when I was testing this out, the Soviet had got 1 influence in France. I actually started out as the U.S. player doing a coup in France on turn 1, so pretty crazy. So we'll just take a quick look at this first lightning card. So play at the same time you play a card with a U.S. affiliated event for its operations. Ignore the event text and place the card in the discard pile. Reduce the DEFCON by 1 if this card is played for operations or for its event. So, basically it's, it's going to basically cancel, if I'm reading this correctly, you play it for its operations, and it cancels the U.S. event. So anyway, that's just an extra card there. But otherwise, this game plays kind of similar to the original game. But now you've got a different setup, a different dynamic, and we didn't have too many extremes happen in that. I mean, Europe looks a little bit different, but you imagine if U.S. Japan, has moved to the mid-war, socialist governments moved to the mid-war. You got a lot more influence in the Middle East. Really could change the outlook for the game. So I just thought I would take a few minutes to outline this kind of exciting variation on Twilight Struggle, just to mix things up a bit and to kind of give you an interesting challenge. You may end up starting the game with a bit of an advantage that way. I'm not sure how that plays out in terms of, you know, if the U.S. or USSR rules poorly or excellently. They may start out with an advantage that's hard to overcome. You assume that the odds are going to be even, more or less, over the course of the number of rules, especially with the modifiers. But you know, it could be a very interesting game no matter what, and could really change the dynamic. I think it's a great way if you're interested in kind of mixing up the game and trying something new. I think it's a really neat variation. We're going to be doing a video on this for sure at some point here on the channel, and we hope we can have a great game to showcase this for you. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a glimpse at this kind of exciting expansion for Twilight Struggle. And it is Turn 0, as it's called. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you got some value out of this video, please like, please subscribe. And once again, this is NATO with Legendary Tactics. We'll see you next time.